You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
In the last episode, we looked at the origins of both iOS and Android. It was an interesting episode that allows you to understand the full context of this video. The previous video will be the first link in the description below, so be sure to check out that video before you start watching this one. If you don't start from the last video, you're just not getting the full story. In this episode, we'll take a look at the app environment, unique features, security risks, brand effectiveness, and features of both Android and iOS. Let's continue with this episode. We'll begin with the app environment, one of the most critical aspects of a mobile OS. Currently, Android leads in terms of the sheer number of apps available, but only just. Android has 1.5 million apps versus iOS's 1.4 million, with Windows Phone lagging behind at 3,400. It's not just about the number of apps though. iOS tends to get premium titles first, which is important to some. Android, on the other hand, has an abundance of third-party apps for every activity you could imagine. Take an app like Tasker for example. It's a relatively simple app that allows you to program your phone to do almost anything. But why does all of this exist for Android? Why is this so? Enter the Android community. Android's strong community of developers and tech enthusiasts really drive the platform. The open source nature of Android allows for this to happen freely, and as a result, everyone benefits. If you decide to start modding your Android phone, then the help, information, and tools are out there and freely available. Okay, so why would you want to modify your phone by rooting or adding custom ROMs in the first place? Popular reasons include installing alternative versions of Android, removing bloatware, or overclocking the hardware to get more performance out of it. Even without rooting, Android is incredibly flexible. If you want, you can personalize your device beyond your wildest dreams. This includes home screen replacements like Voxus here, where you can change the look and feel of your phone instantly. All of that being said, the complete openness is both a blessing and a curse for Android. Here's the downside. Since Android is completely open and can work on any hardware from a car to a fridge, by definition, it's impossible to optimize the software as perfectly as Apple does. Apple, on the other hand, knows every minute detail in the hardware of every phone model that they've ever created and has the corresponding firmware for it. Controlling the production of both the software and hardware can be described by the term vertical integration, of which Steve Jobs was fond of.
One of the pioneers of our industry, Alan Kay, has had a lot of great quotes throughout the years. And I ran across one of them recently that explains how we look at this, explains why we go about doing things the way we do, because we love software. And here's the quote: "People who are really serious about software should make their own hardware." You know, Alan said this 30 years ago, and this is how we feel about it. And so we're bringing breakthrough software to a mobile device for the first time.
This vertical integration allows for complete control and optimization, so much so that 1 GB of RAM is more than enough for the smooth running of an Apple device. As most of you would know, 1 GB of RAM coupled with a run-of-the-mill processor isn't enough for Android these days. You're going to run into some performance issues at that level. This kind of situation has resulted in many people's first experience of Android being a negative one. However, as shown in the previous video, the most powerful Android phones are usually more responsive than the corresponding iPhone. Alright, so far, we've seen that both iOS and Android have improved greatly over time, but let's take this a step further. What are the exact features that set both OSs apart? So now that iPhones have larger screens and more features, what things truly stand out on Android? Well, in Android you have an access to a file system, just like a computer, so this is extremely useful for managing downloaded files from a website. You have the ability to set default apps so you can customize the phone's behavior. You can add a launcher to completely change the look and feel of your phone. There's widgets on your home screen so you can have information that's important to you displayed within reach. USB on the go, mouse support, HDMI support through an external monitor, and the list goes on and could be endless in theory. iMessage, a free messaging service integrated across most Apple devices. Elegant attention to detail in terms of design language and animation. There's FaceTime, a free video communication service exclusive to Apple devices. There's AirDrop, which enables the transfer of documents among supported Mac computers and iOS devices. And then, of course, the seamless Apple ecosystem integration, which is great if you own a lot of Apple products, but it's a nightmare otherwise. So now that we're clearer on the details of the uniqueness of both operating systems, let's change gears a little bit and move on to something increasingly more important these days: security. A lot of people use their phones for everything when they're on the go. This includes activities such as online banking and sensitive email. With hackers knowing this knowledge, mobile security is becoming a real issue today. Last year, a company called Beyond Trust managed to find 127 security flaws in iOS, one of which allowed spyware versions of apps like Facebook and Skype to get onto iOS devices. But the story is probably a lot worse for Android. The total number of security flaws in Android could be even higher than iOS, but nobody actually knows for sure because OEMs like HTC, Samsung, and wireless carriers are free to customize the OS, even changing default applications as they see fit. That being said though, this year, researchers found a gaping vulnerability in Android called stage fright. Stage fright allows a hacker to take complete control of an Android phone or tablet, leaving almost 1 billion devices at risk. In response to stage fright, Google and other phone manufacturers are sending out monthly security patches, independent of software updates. Although it seems like Android definitely comes out on top in its uniqueness, there's still some drawbacks. Mainly, I'm talking about the extremely slow, stuttering software updates. Google's Nexus range is usually the first to receive a software update, but other customers are left out in the cold for a bit too long. This is mainly because device manufacturers have to take the time to incorporate the new software into their own UI, which adds further delay. iOS, on the other hand, usually has the latest version of its operating system in compatible devices within the first month. So looking at all that we've covered, there's one thing that sways in the favor of the iPhone, and it's something that Android perhaps may never have. And that is a strong brand.
Nou, als we mensen Android laten zien op een iPhone en zeggen dat het de iOS 9 is, een Android?
Ja, ik weet niet. Apple is gewoon chill. Ik denk dat het er net iets gelikter uitziet. Iets mooier.
Waarom dit beter is? Voor mij omdat het veel sneller en veel soepeler werkt.
Yeah, in my opinion it does look better and I would recommend to get it, and if I could get one myself, I would.
Ik vind Apple altijd gewoon beter.
Over the decades, Apple has had the ability to turn the ordinary into something beautiful, almost invoking an emotional response in the end user. Their advertising tends to allude to their products being so much more than what they physically are. They sell dreams and ideas, with beautiful industrial design from Johnny Ive to boot. They communicate in a language that everyone understands. There's no mention of gigahertz or RAM, it's all about descriptive terms like edge-to-edge glass, retina display, eyesight camera. This has endowed the company with one of the strongest brand images in history. In short, the iPhone is now a cultural icon, a recognizable status symbol, something that Android in general may never achieve. But why is this? The fact is that there's just too many devices and software skins for consumers to have one crystal clear brand image. Android represents freedom and choice, but it's somewhat of a hard sell due to the cognitive dissonance caused by that very same factor of choice. For example, I've actually heard people say that they couldn't decide which Android phone to get, so they just got an iPhone. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the video, but before we move on to the conclusions, let's examine the possible futures of both iOS and Android. So what's next for Android and iOS? It's hard to completely say, but a clear trend is starting to emerge. The table shown here depicts the buying habits of mobile phone consumers over the past couple of years. What this table is saying is that from the end of 2013 to the middle of 2015, 82% of participants of the survey stayed with Android and 78% stayed with Apple. So what does this mean? Well, in basic terms, we're starting to see market saturation in the Western world, and this is a sign of market maturity. Basically, everyone that wanted a smartphone pretty much has one, and frankly these days, if you're not an enthusiast, it's unsustainable for you to keep going out there and buying a new phone every 6 months or year, while older flagships are starting to become good enough to hold on to. So what's the bottom line? People are happier to stay with each platform. The rivalry is starting to tail off. Some of you observant viewers would have noted that I said, that there was a saturation in the Western market. Google sees what's coming. Android has recently started pushing towards the developing market. This is evident by Android's recent push of Android One, a strong Nexus-style brand in emerging markets. In addition to this, Android software openness could benefit them in the realm of driverless cars, smart homes, and beyond. On the other hand, iPhones may get split screen eventually and also probably keep the dual size format and rely on their brand strength. Apple's foray into the automotive industry will be something interesting to keep an eye on if the Apple Card does in fact materialize and if it runs iOS. Apart from these things that I've mentioned, it's quite difficult to say with any certainty what's going to happen in the future with these two. So with that said, let's move on to the conclusions. The software elegance, premium brand, ease of use, and simplicity of Apple's iOS has done it wonders. It's an international icon of status and social trend awareness. Vertical integration has also made the platform secure, stable, and predictable. Android has come a very, very long way since its inception. It's now responsive and polished with freedom, choice, personalization, and a feature-rich environment. It has been the industry springboard for startups like OnePlus to come in and push the whole industry forward. This is great for consumers. So, which one is better? That's not the right question to be asking. That's like asking what is the best food in the world. It's obviously going to depend on who you ask and their preferences. iOS appeals to a group of people who have certain demands and needs from technology, while Android appeals to a group of people that may or may not be mutually exclusive to those who prefer iOS. For the majority of users, both operating systems do the same thing, fulfill their technology needs. So the score is settled, and it's 1-1. For me personally, I prefer Android because I can do whatever I like. Here's what I mean. For those of you who have been following my channel for a while, you know that this channel started off with customization. Back in 2011, I discovered a combination of apps that could get your phone to look like no one had ever seen before at the time, and that's how this channel really started. In other words, without Android, this channel would not exist as it does today, and you wouldn't be seeing this video. And besides, features like multitasking and access to the file browser are just too hard to live without. But of course, that's just me. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it, comment, and subscribe if you're new. This has been Dagogo, you have been watching Cold Fusion, and I'll see you again for the next video. Cheers guys, have a good one. Hi guys, Dagogo here. I just want to thank you guys for watching the whole way through that video. It's quite interesting when you think about how Android and iOS have evolved over time and how both of them nowadays serve the same purpose. They both fulfill the technological needs of the user. So it's interesting just to see that come to fruition in 2015. As a side point, I also want to thank you guys for all your support and all your kind comments over the years and even recent weeks and months, because the channel has seen quite a bit of growth this year, and it's just really amazing to see that you guys are so supportive. It's just incredible. So it really means a lot to me, and I just wanted to thank you guys personally. And I've got some interesting stuff coming up in some future coming videos, so stay tuned. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe and share this to a friend, someone who's interested in Android or iOS. And I'll see you again soon for the next video. So until next time, have a good one. Cheers. Depending on the user's need.
Cold Fusion. It's new thinking.
Is also personal to a large percentage of the population who own a smartphone, the most personal device of all. This is part 1 of a 2-part series on Android versus iOS. In these videos,